Deep dive. You send us your sources, and we extract what you really need to know.
That's right.
Today, we're taking a look at something you might have overlooked, the user manual. Specifically, the guide for a whole range of Brother DCP printers, the 193C, 195C, 197C365, 365CN, 373CW, and 37CWDW.
A printer manual, you might be thinking. Yeah, it's true. It might not sound like the most thrilling subject.
Not exactly page-turning stuff, usually.
No. But think of it this way. This seemingly dry document is actually the key to unlocking the full potential of your device and, avoiding some really common headaches.
Good point.
Our goal today is to go beyond the basics and highlight some of the, surprising insights within.
Exactly. Our mission in this deep dive is to equip you with the knowledge to really understand what your Brother DCP printer can do and how to keep it humming along nicely.
Okay, let's get into it.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We've got this detailed PDF, and right off the bat, it emphasizes a step that I'll admit many of us probably skip, but is surprisingly important.
Yeah, what's really interesting to consider right away is the manual's strong suggestion to record your printer's model number, serial number, which, by the way, you'll find on the back end when you bought it.
Right, the basics.
It might seem obvious, but think of these details like the VIN for your car. They're essential for any official interaction, whether it's, say, a warranty claim or dealing with insurance after an incident like a fire or something.
Oh, good point. Theft too, maybe?
Definitely. Having that information handy can save you a lot of hassle down the road.
Absolutely. And they even nudge you towards registering your product on the Brother website. It might feel like just another form to fill out,
More admin.
But they point out a real benefit.
Mm-hmm.
It acts as solid proof of your purchase date if you ever...
If you lose the receipt, yeah, which happens all the time.
Exactly. So it can be a lifesaver for warranty issues and insurance claims. It's really about future-proofing yourself.
Yeah, it's smart. And if we zoom out for a moment, this is probably good advice for all your important purchases, really. Beyond that, the manual includes the standard legal stuff, copyright, publishing details. It's a typical disclaimer stating that specs can change without notice, and Brother isn't liable for errors in the manual.
Standard boilerplate.
Pretty much. It's just a gentle reminder that even official documents aren't always absolute gospel.
Right. Okay, so to actually understand the manual itself, it lays out the roadmap, the symbols and conventions they use.
Yeah, the key.
And here's where it gets useful, because it's like learning a mini decoder ring for the printer. Bold text points to buttons you'll physically see on the printer's control panel.
Okay.
Italics add emphasis, just like normal text. And that distinctive Courier New font, that's what will actually pop up on your printer's little LCD screen.
So you know exactly what message to look for. That's handy.
Yeah.
Precisely. And they use icons to quickly draw your attention to different things. You've got a lightning bolt for electrical hazards, a little hand touching a surface for hot parts.
Don't touch.
Right. And exclamation points for warnings, cautions, and important notes. These visual cues are really there to help you operate the printer safely and correctly. Makes sense.
They also guide you on finding the full software and network user guides. These aren't printed, which is interesting.
No, they live on the CD-ROM that came with the printer if you still have a CD drive. And more usefully, perhaps, on the Brother website's support pages.
Right, always check the website. Now, a key thing to note here is that the network guide is only relevant if you have one of the models with networking.
Which ones are those again?
That's the DCP 365CN, 373CW, 375CW, and 377CW. So if you have one of those, there's a whole separate guide just dedicated to getting it connected to your network.
Okay, good distinction. And this brings up a really good point for listeners. How often do you actually dig into the digital manuals that come with your gadgets?
Almost never.
Probably. But you might be surprised by the wealth of specific information they contain, going way beyond the basic printed setup sheet you glanced at once.
Definitely. And speaking of going digital, the manual smartly tells you exactly where to find scanning instructions tucked away in that software user guide.
Right, not in the main hardware manual.
No. And they even tailor it to your computer's operating system, mentioning different software names like scanning, control center, network scanning.
Depends on the OS, yeah.
Exactly. And even some third-party options like ScanSoft, Paperport, and Presto, Page Manager, depending on what might have come bundled or what you've installed. So, regardless of your setup, the scanning how-to is there.
Good to know. And for those network-capable models we mentioned.
Right. For those, the manual directs you to the quick setup guide and that dedicated network user guide to get your wired or wireless connection up and running.
So it points you to the right place.
Yeah, it's all about pointing you to the right resource for your specific printer model and needs.
Makes sense.
Finally, in this initial section, they even show you how to tap into Brother's support resources directly from that bundled CD or presumably the website equivalent.
What kind of resources?
We're talking links to their website, their Solutions Center for troubleshooting tips, information on buying genuine Brother ink, and even their Creative Center for like fun printable projects.
Oh, like templates and things.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a little support hub right there. So, okay, that's the initial lay of the land. Now let's look at the buttons and lights on the printer itself, the control panel.
Okay, yeah, the physical interface. What's really useful here is that many of these Brother DCP models share a pretty similar control panel layout.
Consistency, good.
Yeah. The manual gives you a clear rundown of the buttons you'll likely see. Copy options.
Which includes things like magnify, reduce, quality, and number of copies.
Exactly. Then there's function, the plus and minus buttons for navigating menus, the OK button to confirm selections, stop exit, black start, color start.
The important ones.
Yeah. The power button, obviously. Ink management, scan, image processing, the LCD screen itself, and that all-important warning LED.
Right. And they don't just list them. They actually explain what each one does.
Yeah.
For example, that copy options button, that's your quick access to temporary settings just for the next copy you make.
Ah, so not permanent changes.
No. So if you just need to enlarge something once without messing up your usual settings, that's the button you hit.
Gotcha. And the function button.
That's like the doorway to the main settings menu. It lets you dive deeper into the printer's various options.
Okay, the main menu access.
Yep. And the plus, wait, and OK buttons are your navigation tools within those menus. Pretty standard stuff. Stop exit is your way out, or to cancel a job.
Makes sense. And the start buttons.
The black and color start buttons are your workhorses for making copies and also for starting scans directly from the machine.
Right, and ink management. That sounds important.
It is. That lets you check your ink levels, obviously, but also run those print head cleaning cycles if your prints start looking streaky.
Ah, the maintenance functions.
Exactly. The scan and image processing buttons take you straight to those specific functions, scanning or direct photo printing, which we'll get to.
Okay.
And the LCD screen is your constant feedback, showing you the current status and any messages. But that warning LED, that's particularly insightful you mentioned.
Absolutely. The manual spells out exactly what that flashing orange light can mean. It's not just a generic error.
What kind of things?
Well, it could be something as simple as an open cover, which is easy to fix, or it could signal more significant issues like the printer not being able to print often due to low ink.
A classic problem.
The classic, or a paper jam, or actually a whole range of other specific messages. What's really helpful is that the manual tells you specific page numbers where you can find more detailed explanations for each of these warnings.
Oh, that's brilliant, so you don't have to guess.
Exactly. So that little light isn't just there to annoy you, it's actually trying to tell you something specific, and the manual helps you decode it.
Okay, so we know what the buttons do. Now let's talk about feeding the machine paper handling. This part of the manual has, well, way more detail than you might expect.
It really does. What strikes me here is the really specific step-by-step guidance on loading paper. They emphasize adjusting both the paper width guide and the paper length guide.
Not just one.
Nope, both, to perfectly match the size of paper you're using. They even point out that there's an extension you pull out for loading legal size paper. These little adjustments are really key to preventing paper jams and ensuring smooth feeding.
Makes sense. And who knew there was a right way to fan your paper before putting it in?
Right. Apparently that also helps avoid jams. They really cover the fundamentals.
Little things make a big difference.
Definitely. Then they get into the specifics of loading envelopes and postcards, which is something many people find, well, a bit tricky.
Oh yeah, envelopes are notorious.
Exactly. They provide weight recommendations for envelopes between 80 and 95 grams per square meter, which basically tells you about the thickness and stiffness.
No, not too flimsy, not too thick.
Right. They also specifically warn against using certain types of envelopes, like those with loose flaps, weird windows, embossing, pins, staples, basically anything that isn't flat and standard.
Or ones that have already been printed on, they mentioned that too.
Good point, yeah. They detail the correct way to orient the envelope when loading it face down, flap to the left, usually, and even give tips for troubleshooting those annoying sealing edge issues that can cause jams. It's far more detailed than just, shoving an envelope in the tray.
Ah, guilty as charged sometimes.
Oh,
And if you've ever struggled to get those smaller printouts out of the machine, like maybe 4x6 photos, the manual has a simple tip. Fully extend the paper tray after printing to make them easier to grab.
A small detail, but probably saves some frustration.
Yeah.
They also clearly define the areas where the printer can actually print on both regular sheets and envelopes. That's useful to know when you're designing documents so you don't get text or images cut off at the edges.
Good for layout planning.
Definitely. And it's important to remember, as they point out, you can't do borderless printing on envelopes. Just doesn't work.
Okay. The manual then gives you a pretty comprehensive list of all the different types of paper and media these printers can handle.
What's included?
Everything from plain paper to inkjet specialty paper, various photo papers, transparencies, and of course, envelopes. And, well, unsurprisingly, they suggest using genuine Brother paper for the best results.
Of course they do. But it's also not just about the physical type of paper. The manual highlights the importance of selecting the correct media type in your printer driver settings on your computer.
Why does that matter so much?
Because that tells the printer how much ink to use. And the best way to, manage the drying time for that specific material, glossy paper needs different treatment than plain paper, for example.
Ah, okay. That makes sense. Optimizes the print quality.
Exactly. There are also specific instructions on how to handle and store your print media to keep it in good condition. Like keeping paper flat in its original packaging if possible, away from moisture and direct sunlight. And being careful not to touch the glossy side of photo paper fingerprints don't look great.
Good reminders.
And the don'ts are just as crucial. Avoid using paper that's damaged, curled, too shiny or overly rough, or paper that doesn't stack well.
Right, anything that might cause a feed issue.
Precisely. They also caution against using paper where the grain direction is wrong, although that's getting pretty technical. But basically, stick to recommended paper types.
Got it. They even tell you the capacity of the output tray. It can hold up to 50 sheets of standard letter or A4 paper.
Okay, decent capacity.
And a handy tip for things like transparencies or photo paper. Take each sheet out as it prints to prevent smudging or sticking together. Don't let them pile up.
Ah, good tip for delicate media.
Then there's a really useful detailed table. It shows you exactly which paper types and sizes are suitable for different functions like copying, image processing, which is their term for direct photo printing, and regular printing from your computer.
So a quick reference guide.
Yeah, it's great to quickly check if that fancy paper you bought will actually work for making copies, for instance. Avoids wasting paper and ink.
Very practical.
Following that is another table that gets into the more technical details, like the specific weight ranges, thickness limits, and capacity for all those different media types.
Probably more detail than most people need, but good it's there.
Right, maybe helpful if you're experimenting with non-standard papers or something.
Finally, in the paper handling section, they explain how to load your original documents onto the scanner glass for making copies or scanning to your computer.
Just lift the lid and place it down.
Pretty much. But they specified the maximum size and weight of originals that the scanner can handle, usually up to letter or A4 size. And they also define the exact area that the scanner can actually capture for different functions and paper sizes. There's usually a small border around the edge that doesn't get scanned.
Ah, the scannable area. Good to know. It's all about understanding the physical limits of the hardware. All right, paper's loaded. We know the buttons. Now let's look at some of the general settings you can adjust on these printers. Things you might set once and forget.
Right, the configuration stuff. The manual walks you through how to change the language displayed on the LCD screen. That's obviously important for being able to understand the printer's messages and menus.
Definitely step one if it's not in your language.
Yeah, it's usually a straightforward process within the settings menu.
Similarly, you can adjust the contrast of the LCD screen. If the text isn't sharp enough or easy to read in your lighting, playing with this setting can really improve visibility.
Small tweak, big difference sometimes.
Yeah. Another useful setting is configuring the sleep mode timeout.
Ah, the power saving mode.
Exactly. You can choose how long the printer waits after its last use before it goes into a low-power sleep mode. The options range from like 1 minute up to an hour.
So you can balance energy saving with convenience.
Right. It helps conserve energy, and any new print job or button press will wake it up automatically.
Good. Now, here's a section that might seem a bit hidden but can be really valuable, especially for understanding your printer's setup or for troubleshooting. Printing reports.
What kind of reports?
You can print a menu help report, which basically explains how to navigate and use the printer's own menus, like a mini manual for the menus.
Okay.
You can print a user settings report that lists all your current personalized settings, defaults for copying, paper size, etc.
Like a snapshot of your configuration.
Exactly. And for the network-enabled models, you can print a network configuration report, which shows IP address, MPUS address, connection status, all the network details. Really useful for troubleshooting network problems.
Yeah, that network report sounds super helpful if you're having connection issues.
Definitely. And the manual gives you clear, step-by-step instructions on how to access and print these reports, usually through that function menu we talked about.
So you get a physical copy for reference.
Right. It's a great way to have a record of your settings.
Okay, let's move on to what many people use their all-in-one printer for most, making copies. This section covers everything from the basics to some more advanced options.
Yeah, the core function for many. The fundamental copying actions are pretty intuitive, as you'd expect. How to make a single copy, how to specify multiple copies.
How many can you do at once?
You can punch in up to 99 at a time, the manual notes, and also how to stop a copy job in progress using that stop exit button if you make a mistake.
Crucial escape button.
Always need one. But then it gets into the copy options, which, remember, are those temporary adjustments you can make just for your very next copy job.
Right, using that dedicated button.
Exactly. This is where you can quickly tweak things like the copy speed and quality without changing your normal default settings.
So what are the quality options?
You can temporarily choose between normal, fast, and best quality modes. Normal is the standard, default setting a good balance of speed and quality.
Makes sense.
Fast prioritizes speed and uses less ink, so it's good for quick drafts or internal documents where quality isn't critical.
Ink saving mode, basically.
Kinda, yeah. And best increases the print resolution for sharper images, like photos, but it will take noticeably longer to print.
Trade-off between speed and quality.
Always. And you can also permanently set your preferred default quality in the main function menu if you usually want fast or best.
Okay, what about changing the size, enlarging or reducing?
Yep, you can do that temporarily too, using copy options. You can choose from preset percentages like 50%, 100%, 200%, or you can enter a custom zoom level anywhere from 25% reduction all the way up to 400% enlargement.
Wow, 400% is quite a lot.
It is. There's also a handy fit-to-page option that automatically resizes whatever you put on the scanner glass to fill the paper size you currently have loaded in the tray.
Oh, that's useful. Like if you have a small receipt and want it bigger on the page.
Exactly. However, the manual points out a little patch with fit-to-page. It might not work as expected if the original document you've placed on the scanner glass is tilted or skewed by more than about 3 degrees.
So you need to place it reasonably straight for that to work well.
Right. Making sure your original is aligned properly is important. Also, it's good to know that you can't use layout options like N-in-1 copying at the same time as you're using the enlarge reduce function. They're mutually exclusive.
Okay, good limitation to be aware of. Now, what's this N-in-1 copying feature?
This is really useful for saving paper. It lets you fit 2 or even 4 pages of your original document onto a single sheet of paper when you copy.
How does it lay them out?
They explain how to do 2-in-1 in both portrait orientation, or one page is printed above the other, and landscape orientation, where they're side by side.
Okay.
And there's also a 4-in-1 option, which puts 4 original pages onto one sheet, usually in a 2x2 grid. This is great for things like printing presentation handouts or consolidating multi-page documents.
Definitely saves paper.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for when you really want to make a big statement, there's even a poster feature.
A poster from this little printer.
Yeah. It takes your original document or photo and enlarges it to be printed across 9 separate sheets of paper, usually in a 3x3 grid. You then have to carefully trim and tape them together to create your poster.
Wow, okay. That's kind of cool. It's a bit fiddly.
It is. However, they do mention a couple of limitations. You can only create one poster at a time, and you can't use the enlarge reduce function or make color copies when you're using the N-in-1 copying modes, 2-in-1 or 4-in-1. Those are black and white only.
Gotcha. The manual probably shows you how to place the originals for these.
It does. It provides specific diagrams showing how to place your originals on the scanner glass, depending on whether you're doing 2-in-1 portrait, 2-in-1 landscape, 4-in-1, or the 3x3 poster. Visual aids like that are super helpful to get the layout right.
Definitely. What else can you adjust for copies?
You can also adjust the brightness and contrast of your copies.
To make them lighter or darker?
Exactly. And you can do this both as a temporary setting just for the next job using copy options, or you can set your preferred brightness and contrast levels as a permanent default in the main menu.
Why would you need to adjust that?
Well, it gives you control over how light or dark the copies turn out and how much detail is visible in shadows or highlights. It can be really useful if your original document is maybe faded or very dark to begin with. You can compensate for that.
Makes sense. Improving the original.
Kinda, yeah. Finally, in the copying section, they cover setting the paper type and paper size that you'll be using for your copies.
Didn't we cover paper types earlier?
We did for general loading, but this is specifically telling the copier function what paper it's about to print onto. Again, you can do this temporarily just for the next copy job via copy options, or you can set it as the default for all future copies in the main menu.
So you tell it if you're using plain paper or photo paper or...
Precisely. The options usually include plain paper, inkjet specialty paper, Brother's own BP71 photo paper, other photo paper, or even transparencies.
And paper size, too.
Yep, you can also select the paper size you're copying onto, choosing from common sizes like letter, legal, A4, A5, or the 4x6-inch photo size, 10 by 15 centimeters. Again, temporary or default. This ensures the printer optimizes the copying process and knows the boundaries of the page.
It's all about giving you flexibility, isn't it?
Yeah.
And ensuring that your copies come out looking their best on whatever paper you happen to be using.
Exactly. Now, let's switch gears a bit and talk about printing photos and documents directly from the printer without needing to go through a computer at all.
The direct printing features. This is where it gets really interesting for people who want to quickly print photos, maybe straight from their camera's memory card or a USB drive. The manual details what they call the Photo Capture Center feature.
Right. Now, first, a very important point. This direct printing capability via memory card or USB is only available on certain models in this range.
Which ones again?
It's the DCP-373CW, 375CW, and 377CW models. The other models we listed earlier, the 193, 195C, 195C, 365CN, they don't have the memory card slots or the USB port for direct printing like this. They need a computer or PIC bridge.
Okay, crucial difference. So for those three models, what can the Photo Capture Center do?
It allows you to do a few key things directly from the printer's control panel. First, print photos directly from a compatible memory card or a USB flash drive.
The main event.
Right. Second, you can actually scan documents or photos and save them directly to the memory card or USB drive.
Oh, scan to the card. That's handy.
It can be, yeah. And third, you can even access the files stored on the memory card or USB drive through your computer when the printer is connected via USB, treating it like an external card reader.
Okay, versatile. What kind of cards and drives work?
The manual provides a detailed list. It covers common types like SD cards, memory stick, XD picture card, and compact flash usually. It also tells you when you'll need an adapter for the smaller card formats.
Like mini SD, micro SD.
Exactly, and the various memory stick duo and micro formats. Interestingly, they specifically note that the old IBM microdrive format is not compatible.
Okay, good to know the specifics. What about the files themselves? Any rules?
Yes, some important ones. For direct printing, only JPG image files are supported. No TIFFs, no PNGs, just JPEGs.
Standard photo format. Makes sense.
Yep. And here's a key thing to remember. When you're using the Photo Capture Center to print from or scan to a memory card or USB drive directly at the printer, you cannot simultaneously access those files through your computer. It's one mode or the other.
Okay, you can't do both at once.
No. Also, the printer can only read a maximum of 999 files on the media. If you have more photos than that, it won't see them all.
999 should be enough for most sessions, hopefully. What about DPOF?
Ah, yes, DPOF, digital print order format. If your digital camera supports this and you've used it to pre-select which photos you want to print and how many copies of each, the printer can read those instructions directly from the memory card.
So it prints what you chose on the camera.
Exactly. It automates the selection process. However, the manual notes that the DPOF file needs to be in a specific standard format for the printer to understand it correctly.
And what if there are bad files on the card? Like corrupted images?
Good question. The printer will simply skip them. It'll try to print all the valid JPG files it can find, but if it hits a corrupted one, it just moves on to the next. It won't usually crash the whole process.
That's good resilience. How should files be organized on the card or drive?
The manual touches on this. For memory cards, it's generally best to keep the same folder structure that your digital camera uses, usually a DCIM folder with subfolders.
Right, don't mess with that.
Yeah. For USB drives, they should ideally be formatted using a standard Windows file system, like FAT or FAT32. This helps the printer find and read the files without any issues. Sticking to camera defaults is usually safest.
Makes sense. Inserting the media seems obvious, but any tips there?
Well, inserting the memory card or USB drive into the correct slot is obviously crucial. The manual explains what the little image processing LED light on the printer will do.
What does it indicate?
It usually lights up or blinks to show when the media is properly inserted and recognized, and critically, when the printer is actively reading data from it or writing data to it, like during a scan.
And the big warning.
The big warning is never remove the memory card or USB drive while that light is flashing. This could corrupt the data on the media or even damage the card or drive itself. Wait until the light is steady or off.
Okay, critical advice. So, how do you actually print the photos once the card is in?
The step-by-step guide is quite thorough. It usually recommends starting by printing an index page.
What's that?
It's essentially a sheet of small thumbnail versions of all the photos on your card printed out, usually with a number underneath each thumbnail.
Ah, like a contact sheet.
Exactly. This makes it really easy to see what photos you have on the card and identify the specific ones you want print by their number without having to scroll through them one by one on the tiny LCD screen.
Smart first step.
Definitely. Once you have that index page, you can go back into the Photo Capture Center menu on the printer's LCD screen and select an option like Print Images or Select Photos.
So that you tell it the numbers.
Yep. You can then usually enter the specific numbers of the photos you want to print based on your index sheet. Or some options might let you specify a range of numbers if you want to print a whole sequence of pictures, like numbers 5 through 10.
Okay, flexible selection. Can you customize the index page itself?
Yes, there are usually options for that too. You can often choose things like whether you want 6 or maybe 5 thumbnails to appear on each line of the index page. And you can select the type and size of paper you want to use just for printing the index, usually just plain paper.
Good. And when it comes to actually printing the photos themselves?
You have even more control there. You can choose the type of paper you're using, like glossy photo paper, matte paper, etc. You select the size of the print you want.
Like 4x6, 5x7.
Exactly those standard photo sizes, or maybe even printing onto letter or A4 paper if you want. And of course, you can specify how many copies of each selected photo you want to print.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What about printing on A4? Does it fill the page?
Not usually for standard photo sizes. For larger paper like A4, the manual often includes a little diagram showing you where the smaller photo print, like a 4x6, will typically be positioned on the page, usually near one corner.
Oh, okay. So it doesn't automatically scale it up unless you use a specific setting, maybe.
Right, or unless you were copying and used fit to page. Direct printing usually assumes you want the standard photo size.
Got it. That DPOF printing we mentioned earlier, any more detail?
Just that the manual explains exactly how you can use those print order settings that you might have saved on your compatible digital camera. If a DPOF file is present, the printer will often ask if you want to use it, and then it automatically prints the images and quantities you pre-selected on the camera.
Streamlines things if you planned ahead.
Exactly. Now, beyond just basic printing, the Photo Capture Center also lets you adjust the default print settings. These are the settings the printer will use unless you override them for a specific print job.
Where do you find those?
Usually in the main function menu, under a photo capture or image processing section. Here, you can customize things like the default print quality, choosing between normal, maybe for quick proofs, and photo for best quality.
What else?
Default paper type, for example, always assume glossy. Default paper size, for example, default to 4x6. The actual print size of your photos, and various color enhancement options.
Color enhancement. Like what?
Things like adjusting brightness, contrast, white balance, sharpness, and even color density. You can really fine-tune the look of your prints.
Wow. Quite a bit of control without a computer.
Yeah. You can also set defaults for whether or not to automatically crop your images to fit the paper size, whether to print them borderless if the paper size supports it, and even whether to automatically print the date the photo was taken onto the image.
Print the date. Some people love that, some hate it.
Exactly, it's an option. Now, it's worth keeping in mind that using some of those more advanced color enhancement options might make your prints take a little longer to process and print.
Makes sense. More processing needed.
Also, if you want to use that automatic date print feature, you'll usually need to make sure the DPOF function is turned off, as they can sometimes conflict.
Good tip. What about scanning to the card or drive?
Right, the other direction. The Photo Capture Center handles that too. You can scan documents or photos placed on the scanner glass and save them directly to your inserted memory card or USB drive.
What formats can you save in?
If you scan in black and white, you can usually save the files as either PDF or TIFF formats. If you're scanning in color, the options are typically PDF or JPEG.
PDF is useful for documents, JPEG for photos.
Precisely. The manual tells you what the default settings usually are, often something like color scan saved at 150 dpi in PDF format, and explains how the printer automatically generates file names for the scans, usually based on the date and a sequence number.
Can you change those scan settings, like resolution or format?
Yes. If you want to change those defaults, the manual provides instructions on how to adjust the image quality, resolution like 150, 300, 600 dpi, and the file format, PDF, TIFF, JPEG, for both black and white and color scans. You do this through the printer's main menu before you start the scan.
So you can choose higher resolution for better detail or a different format if needed.
Exactly. Gives you control over the output.
Finally, the Photo Capture Center section wraps up with something really helpful. A list of potential error messages you might see on the LCD screen when using these features.
Like what? Things like hub not available, if you tried plugging in a USB hub maybe. Media card error, no file, if you can't find any JPEGs. Memory full, printer memory, not card memory usually. Media card full, can't save scan, and device not available.
And it tells you what they mean.
Usually provides a brief explanation or points you to the main troubleshooting section. It helps you understand what might have gone wrong.
Okay, that covers the Photo Capture Center pretty well. Yeah. Now, for those of you who have one of the other models, the DCP 193C, 195C, 197C, or 365CN, there's another way to print directly from your digital camera, right?
That's right. These models don't have the memory card slots, but they do have a special USB port on the front, usually marked with a camera icon, that supports a standard called PictBridge.
PictBridge, what is that exactly?
PictBridge is basically a universal standard that allows compatible digital cameras to connect directly to a compatible printer using a USB cable for easy photo printing. It bypasses the need for a computer entirely.
So camera talks directly to printer.
Exactly. The manual outlines what you need. Obviously, a PictBridge compatible digital camera, the right USB cable to connect it to that specific port on your printer, not just any USB cable might work. And it notes again that you should generally only be trying to print JPG files.
Any limitations?
Yeah. Similar to the Photo Capture Center, you can't use other printer functions like scanning to PC at the same time as you're actively using PictBridge.
Okay. How do you control the printing? From the camera or the printer?
Usually from the camera. Depending on your specific digital camera, you might see PictBridge-related settings pop up right on your camera's LCD screen once it's connected. This might allow you to choose paper size, print quality, number of copies, and other options directly on the camera.
So the camera drives the process?
Often, yes. Or your camera might just tell the printer to use its own built-in default settings for PictBridge printing. The manual sometimes includes a table showing some of the common PictBridge settings the printer might use by default if the camera doesn't specify them.
What kind of settings?
Things like default paper size, example 4x6, default paper type, example glossy, whether to print with or without a border, maybe do POF settings if applicable, print quality, color adjustments, and even whether to print the date.
So the printer has its own defaults just in case.
Right. Connecting your PictBridge camera is usually pretty straightforward. The manual typically says, make sure your camera is turned off first. Plug one end of the correct USB cable into your camera and the other end into that dedicated PictBridge USB port on your Brother printer, and then turn your camera on.
It should just connect.
Hopefully. The printer should automatically recognize it as a PictBridge device, and you can then use your camera screen and controls to browse your photos, select the ones you want, and start the printing process.
Any warnings here?
Yes. The manual does include a warning against connecting devices that aren't supported via PictBridge to that port, like trying to plug in a USB flash drive there, or an incompatible camera. It might cause errors or not work.
Stick to PictBridge cameras for that port.
Got it. Can you use DPOF with PictBridge?
Yes. Just like with direct printing from a memory card, you can also use DPOF print orders if your PictBridge camera supports them and you've set them up. This allows you to utilize any print selections you've already made on your camera for automatic printing. Okay, so 2 ways to print directly depending on the model. Is there a third way?
Well, sort of related. For that same group of models that support PictBridge, the 193C, 195C, 197C, and 365CN, you might also be able to print directly from digital cameras that support what's called the USB mass storage class.
USB mass storage, what's that?
This basically means your camera can act like a removable hard drive or a USB stick when you connect it to a computer, or in this case, the printer. You might use this method even if your camera doesn't specifically support the PicBridge standard.
So if PicBridge doesn't work, try this. How does it work?
The process is quite similar to PicBridge, actually. You connect your camera to that same front USB port on the printer via USB cable, but you might need to set your camera to its storage mode or PC Connect mode first. Check your camera's manual for that.
Okay, put the camera in the right mode.
Right. If the printer recognizes it in this mode, it will then essentially treat it like a USB flash drive. You'll likely be able to access print options through the printer's own menu system, similar to how the Photo Capture Center works on the other models, allowing you to browse folders and select JPEGs to print using the printer's controls.
So the printer takes control in this case, not the camera.
Generally, yes. Again, the manual advises against connecting devices that aren't compatible or cameras that don't support this mode.
Got it. Any errors specific to camera printing?
And just like with the Photo Capture Center, you might encounter some error messages when printing directly from a digital camera using either PicBridge or mass storage. The manual mentions possibilities like memory full, again, printer memory, or device not available.
And where do you find out more?
The manual usually directs you back to the main errors and maintenance messages section in the appendix for more detailed information on troubleshooting these specific issues.
Okay, we've covered a lot about the hardware and these direct printing methods. Now, the manual gives a brief overview of the software that comes with the printer and its network capabilities, right?
It does, although it emphasizes that the real detail is elsewhere. The main user manual reminds you that the separate software user guide and the network user guide, specifically for those models that have networking features, found on the bundled CD or website, contain much more in-depth information.
What kind of info?
Everything about using the printer when it's connected to your computer. So detailed instructions on how to print from various applications, how to use a scanner with your computer software, and how to utilize all the included brother utilities.
What software do they typically include?
They list the main components you'll likely find. There's Control Center version 3 for Windows users, version 2 for Macintosh users, which is the main hub for scanning and accessing other functions from your computer. There's also software related to the Photo Capture Center, which allows you to access photos on a memory card or USB drive connected to the printer from your computer. And of course, the necessary printer and scanner drivers, including drivers for network printing and scanning if your model supports it, whether via wired Ethernet or wireless Wi-Fi.
Right, the stuff that gets installed on the PC or Mac.
Exactly. Finally, they briefly explain how you can actually access and read these full software and network user manuals, which are typically in HTML format, like web pages.
How do you open them?
They guide you on how to open these files either directly from the CD itself if you're using it, or more likely from your computer's program list or start menu once the main brother software suite has been installed. You just navigate to the documentation section.
Okay, so the main manual points you to the digital ones for software details. Makes sense. We're getting towards the end of our deep dive into this manual, but the appendix section contains some really critical information, doesn't it? Starting with important safety guidelines and regulations.
Absolutely vital section. It emphasizes some key safety precautions. Standard stuff, but important. Warnings about the high voltage inside the printer, don't go poking around. The danger of operating it with wet hands.
Basic electrical safety.
Right, and the importance of using the power cord safely, making sure it's not damaged, pinched, or walked on. They also strongly advise against using flammable sprays or liquids near the printer.
Fire hazard, yeah.
And they explain what steps to take if you notice any unusual smells, smoke, overheating, or if a foreign object like a paperclip accidentally gets inside the machine, basically. Unplug it immediately and call for service.
Good advice.
It's really stressed that you should always connect the printer to a properly grounded, earthed electrical outlet and only use the specific power cord that came with the device. Don't substitute it.
Okay. What about general placement?
The general safety notes also include advice on where to put the printer. Always on a stable, level surface where it won't fall or wobble, making sure there's enough ventilation around it, don't block the vents, and protecting it from power surges, maybe using a surge protector.
Good practical tips.
They also remind you that a sudden power outage could cause you to lose any data that's temporarily stored in the printer's memory, like a print job that was being received.
Yeah. Unsaved work.
The important safety instructions section kind of reiterates some of these key points in a list format. Always read and understand all instructions before using the printer. Pay close attention to all warning labels on the machine itself. Don't use the printer near water or spill liquids on it.
Common sense, but worth stating.
Definitely. Ensure it's on a stable surface, allow for proper airflow, only use the correct type of power source specified, and be careful with the power cord to avoid damage or creating a tripping hazard.
Okay. What about legal stuff? Copying restrictions.
Yes, there's usually a section that covers the legal regulations around copying. It serves as a reminder that making unauthorized copies of certain things is illegal or restricted in many places.
Like what?
Things like currency, banknotes and coins, government bonds or securities, postage stamps, used or unused, military service papers, and also copyrighted materials like books, music, or artwork if done for fraudulent purposes or against copyright law.
So use your copier responsibly and ethically.
That's the message, yeah. It's a good reminder of the legal boundaries.
Anything else in the appendix intro?
The manual also includes a standard list of trademarks, acknowledging the various companies whose technologies or software might be mentioned or used in the printer, like Microsoft, Apple, Adobe, memory card associations, etc.
Standard acknowledgments.
Yep, standard practice in technical documentation to cover intellectual property rights.
Okay, now the really practical part of the appendix. Troubleshooting.
Yes, this section is usually quite extensive and potentially the most visited part of the manual. It typically covers common problems you might encounter with the printer itself, like paper jams, weird noises, issues when you're making copies, poor quality, streaks, problems when you're scanning.
Scan quality issues, connection problems.
Exactly. Problems with the software on your computer, driver conflicts, communication errors, specific issues with the photo capture center features, card not reading, errors printing, and for the network models, common network connectivity problems.
How does it help you solve them?
It often refers back to those specific error messages that might appear on the LCD screen, providing more detail on what they mean and suggesting specific troubleshooting steps or maintenance procedures you can try. It really tries to guide you through diagnosing the problem. This ties back to decoding that warning LED we discussed earlier.
Very useful when something goes wrong. What about routine upkeep?
Routine maintenance is also covered in detail. This includes step-by-step instructions with diagrams on how to properly replace the ink cartridges when they run low or empty.
Crucial task.
Definitely. Also, how to clean the exterior of the printer, dusting, wiping. How to clean the scanner glass, which is important for clear scans and copies with fingerprints or dust there will show up.
Yeah, got to keep that glass clean.
How to clean the paper pressure roller and the paper feed rollers inside the machine, which can help prevent paper jams if they get dusty or coated with paper residue. And how to run a print head cleaning cycle from the menu to fix issues like streaky or faded prints.
So preventative maintenance too.
Right. They also explain how you can print a test page to check your current print quality, how to perform a print alignment procedure if your vertical lines are looking jagged or misaligned, and of course, how to check your current ink levels through the menu.
Lots of self-help maintenance.
Yeah, quite a bit you can do yourself. If you ever need to find your printer's specific serial number again, maybe for support, or if you need to reset some or all of the printer's settings back to their original factory defaults.
Like a factory reset.
Exactly. The manual provides instructions on how to do that, usually through hidden key combinations or menu options. And if you ever need to move your printer to a new location or ship it somewhere.
Moving house scenario.
Right. There's even a brief guide on the best way to prepare, pack, and transport it safely to prevent damage, especially to the sensitive print head mechanism. Usually involves securing parts and maybe putting it back in its original box if you kept it.
Good foresight. What else is back there?
The appendix also typically includes a really handy overview of the entire menu structure of the printer, like a map of all the settings available through the function button. It explains the functions of all the different keys and buttons, again, kind of a summary.
A menu map, that's useful.
Very. And then there's usually a detailed specification section. This lists all the technical details of the printer model.
What kind of specs?
Covers everything from general information, dimensions, weight, power consumption, to specifics about the types and sizes of print media it can handle, the capabilities and resolutions of the copier and scanner, the details of the photo capture center, and pick bridge features, if applicable.
Network spec.
Yeah, the printer's interface connections, USB, network ports, the minimum computer system requirements, OS versions, RAM, the specific model numbers for the ink cartridges it uses, very important, and the detailed network specifications like supported protocols, security types for those models that have networking.
Wow, that's comprehensive. All the tech details in one place.
Pretty much. And of course, like any good manual, there should be a comprehensive index at the very back to help you quickly find specific information you're looking for using keywords.
Don't underestimate a good index.
Never. Finally, going back to ink replacement, the manual gives very detailed instructions on that process. It emphasizes the importance of the ink dot counter system the printer uses to estimate ink levels.
Not always perfectly accurate, but an estimate.
Right. It tracks usage rather than directly measuring ink. It gives clear warnings about what happens when your ink is reported as low or empty. Printing might stop. And as you'd expect, it strongly recommends that you use genuine Brother brand ink cartridges.
Why the push for genuine?
They argue it ensures the best printing quality and reliability, and using third-party cartridges might potentially affect your printer's performance or even void your warranty, although the legality of that varies. But they definitely push their own brand.
Standard manufacturer line.
It truly is a surprisingly thorough document when you actually look through it.
Absolutely. So, who knew that a simple user manual for a, well, relatively standard home or small office printer could be such a goldmine of information?
It really is, isn't it? We've uncovered quite a few unexpected insights just by digging into this one example.
Yeah, things like the detailed options for handling all those different types of paper and envelopes.
Right, the specifics matter. And the direct photo printing capabilities on some models that let you completely bypass your computer for quick prints.
Very convenient sometimes. And the surprisingly wide array of maintenance features built right in the cleaning cycles. The alignment checks, all designed to help keep your printer running smoothly.
Things you can actually do yourself to fix common problems.
Exactly. And understanding these details can really empower you, the listener, to get the absolute most out of your own Brother DCP printer, or really any similar device, and to troubleshoot common issues much more effectively.
Yeah, no more just staring blankly at that blinking warning light and wondering what it wants. You've got the decoder ring now.
Hopefully. This kind of leads to a final thought for you, our listeners. How much potential functionality might you be overlooking in all the different devices you use every single day?
Ooh, good question. Phones, TVs, kitchen appliances?
Right. All because maybe we haven't taken the time to really explore their manuals, whether printed or digital, in depth.
There might be some surprisingly useful features, hidden settings, or clever shortcuts just waiting to be discovered. Things that could make life easier or more efficient.
Definitely something to think about. Maybe crack open a manual or find one online for a device you use often and see what you find.
We encourage you, our listener, to share any other surprising things you've discovered in your own tech manuals or any aha moments you had thinking about this.
That's all the time we have for this deep dive into the printer manual. Until our next exploration.